And before we get to all of that, let's put the world to rights with the chief political writer at Spiked Online, Brendan O'Neill. Welcome, Brendan.
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks, mate. First off, your take on what's going on in Washington. I've described it as a kind of strange testament to the new world order. You know, these two guys meet in Alaska on Friday, Putin and Trump, carve up Ukraine, and then Trump returns to Washington and basically says to Europe, if you don't like it, you can forget it, lump it. They all climb on planes and scurry across the Atlantic to pay homage to what looks like the new world order, that European leaders, including our leader Keir Starmer, are reduced really to looking like impotent witnesses who can't really do much about anything. It's the times they are a-changing, aren't they?
Absolutely. I actually agree with everything you said just before I came on air there. I don't like this deal. I think it's bad for Ukraine, and I support the right of Ukraine to govern its own territory, just as I support the right of every nation to govern its own territory. But something has to be done. It seems that this conflict has reached a stalemate. It's a horrible conflict. It's an expensive conflict, as you said. It's cost lots of money. It's cost lots of lives. And it doesn't look like Russia's going to be leaving anytime soon. And it doesn't look like Ukraine is going to be victorious over Russia. So it's a classic stalemate. Something has to be done to bring it to an end, I think. And even though it's an end that I wouldn't necessarily like, and I'm sure lots of Ukrainian people don't like it, I do think something like this has to happen. But you're right. It shows that the world has changed. Trump is exercising his authority over Europe in a way that very few American presidents have done in recent years. And you know, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we have the British government and the French government and all these other governments saying we have to protect Ukraine, we have to defend Ukrainian sovereignty. They can't even defend their own borders. Keir Starmer can't even preserve the sovereignty of this country in which he is elected to be prime minister. He can't even control his own territory and protect it from people coming here illegally. The idea that he is going to save Ukraine from the Russian invaders is a joke. So the whole thing, I think, has become a bit of a mess. We need a resolution.
And this is what concerns me. I understand, and I think most people in Britain, we understand the geopolitical ramifications of allowing Putin to get away with invading Ukraine and getting what he wants. You know, if he succeeds in a land grab, it will be seen as reward for outrageous international bullying and all that. You know, I understand that. And so do I think most people in Britain. However, what we're being asked to accept, and what Keir Starmer and the Tories and all across Westminster, you've seen all these politicians, you know, of all colours. Every time they're on telly, they've got their little Ukraine badge, you know, standing with Ukraine, the flag there and everything. There is this assumption in Westminster that the whole nation is right behind the unequivocal support of Ukraine, no matter how much it costs. It has cost us so far £18.3 billion, and we have pledged to give Ukraine at least another £3 billion a year until 2030. As I say, everybody in this country understands what this is about, but I think that when Keir Starmer doesn't even talk to us about it, doesn't even ask us, but assumes full fat support on the part of the British people for spending billions and billions of pounds on a foreign country, I think he assumes too much.
You're absolutely right. You know, politics in Britain has changed so much over the past 3 years since this conflict started. I think there was an initial outpouring of support for Ukraine. People in Britain and around the world were really shocked that in the 21st century, a European nation was invaded by an aggressive imperial army. We were shocked and horrified. It reminded us of things that happened 80 years ago. So there was that outpouring, but things have changed. And I think a lot of British people now will be asking, why is it more acceptable in Britain to wave the Ukraine flag than it is to wave the British flag? Look at what's happening in Birmingham, Kevin. You'll be all over this story. The Union flag and the English flag are being taken down by the local council. They're being put back up again and again by local men there. It's almost like a criminal offence, or certainly a moral offence, to wave our own flag in our own country. And yet politicians will happily wave the Ukraine flag and put the pin on their blazers. It's extraordinary, isn't it? Where the only way demonstrate their moral virtue now through foreign issues, through supporting Ukraine, through supporting human rights, and increasingly through being anti-Israel, pro-Gaza, etc., etc. They are constantly demonstrating their virtue through foreign issues. But things have changed, and people in the UK are saying, what about us?
Yes.
What about our living standards? What about our borders? What about our communities? What about these migrant hotels where we know there are people who've been suspected of committing criminal offences, including sexual offences? People are saying, bring politics back home. Deal with the issues at home. And I think that's the real problem confronting Keir Starmer.
Yeah, people are just saying spend this money on us, and they don't like the idea of billions and billions and billions of pounds, essentially of taxpayers' money going abroad. It's as simple as that. Well, I'm glad you brought up the flags. I wasn't going to talk about this yet, but let's do it now. Birmingham Council, Friday, they were busy pulling down hundreds of flags that had been put up in what was called a patriotic outpouring. Union Jacks and St George's flags hung on lampposts all over the second city, Britain's second city of Birmingham. Birmingham City Council saying we've got to pull those down. And there they are, busy pulling them down. You could literally see some council workers pulling down Union Jacks and St George's flags from lampposts, and in the background on buildings you could see the Palestine flag flapping away happily. It's now going on in Tower Hamlets in London, the same deal, where in a similar outpouring of patriotism, patriots have put up St George's cross flags. The council has announced, just as Birmingham City Council announced, that these flags flying on lampposts are dangerous and a risk to life. So that's why they're pulling them down. But apparently the Palestinian flag is not dangerous, nor is it a risk to life. So in Tower Hamlets, they're saying, yes, we're going to get these flags down as soon as possible. Whereas if you go to Tower Hamlets now, it's not far from here. I know what that place is like. You might as well be in Gaza. There are so many Palestinian flags. So pulling down the St George's cross flag, the Union Jack, but leaving the Palestinian flag flying. What is going on, Brendan?
It's complete lunacy, isn't it? And, you know, I have to be open with your listeners and viewers. I was brought up to be wary of the Union flag. I was brought up in a very Irish family in London. My parents didn't like the Union flag. They preferred the Irish flag. So I was always a little bit hostile to the Union flag, but more recently...
It's in your DNA.
Yeah, it's in my DNA, but more recently, I've learned to love it. I mean, especially since Brexit, which I was very happy to vote for and very happy to support. When I see the Union flag now, including in Birmingham and in other parts of the country where people are putting it up, to me, it's an act of resistance against this kind of post-national, post-borders, technocratic class that we all live under. It's an act of resistance by ordinary people who are basically saying, look, this nation matters. Its history matters, its communities matter, its borders matter. It's a statement of national interest. Remember that, the national self-interest, which is very unfashionable to talk about these days. Politicians certainly would never talk about it, but these ordinary working class people are talking about it. They're saying, listen, what happens in this country is incredibly important, and our lives are incredibly important. And isn't it amazing, Kevin, that waving the Union flag, waving the flag of Britain has become an act of resistance in Britain itself. It's such an extraordinary state of affairs. But whenever I see people putting it up now, I let out a little cheer because I know they're pushing back against the political class that actually hates the country that it governs.
Exactly right. We've got to reclaim these flags because they become associated. In no other country has this ever happened. That the national flag becomes associated with sort of far-right extremism. Oh, well, you like your country, you must be a Nazi. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Let me know, folks, what you think about this. There's another council at it. Birmingham Council still busy pulling down all those Union Jacks and St George's cross flags, saying that they are a danger to life, a risk to the public, but the many Palestinian flags flying there are not. Same deal now in Tower Hamlets in London. They're busy pulling down national flags, our patriotic flags, saying they're a risk. The Palestinian flags stay up. Let me know what you think, folks. 03444991000. Let's talk about the hotel protest. Big protest last night and yesterday afternoon, Brendan, outside the Britannia International Hotel in Canary Wharf. Until 3 weeks ago, that was 425 quid a night to businessmen, very much a business hotel, now full of migrants. Last week, an asylum seeker staying there just walked into a blind 80-year-old lady's flat and was subsequently arrested. But the local population, they said, wait, you know, there was a big confrontation between the coppers and the local population. People saying, hang on, that guy's just walked into that old lady's flat. And they go, oh, we can't arrest him because there's no, the door was open, there's no offence there. Local people very angry about that, but to be fair, we must be careful here. He's now been arrested and charged with assault. So much for the police's story that they were putting out last week. Well, he ran into that flat because he was being chased, you know, by dangerous men. Now it turns out, at least allegedly, he could be guilty of assault in that flat. So differing stories there. But anyway, in other words, feelings are running high in Canary Wharf. Of course, they are in Epping, where a second asylum seeker, has been charged with a sexual offence following the first. More and more of these asylum seekers staying at these migrant hotels charged with more and more serious offences. We're getting more and more of these protests outside these hotels, and Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, says this is a sign that when it comes to the migrant crisis, the escalating migrant crisis and the asylum seeker hotel crisis, the British people have already snapped. We have had enough, haven't we?
We've had enough. And I think these communities are right to be angry. You know, what we have in these communities is an uprising of mostly working class families, including lots and lots of mums who just want their kids to be safe. They're not fascists, they're not xenophobes, they just want their children to be safe when they're playing outside. And they don't think they will be because overnight, 400 or 500 men who are unvetted have just been planted into that community. There is no other moment in British history when that would have been seen as an acceptable thing to do. That would have been seen as an outrage. And it doesn't make you xenophobic to say that. These are unvetted men. We don't know where they come from. We don't know if they're running away from having committed crimes in other countries. We don't know what kind of regressive culture they come from, where they might treat women and girls as inferior to men. This is a risk, and it's a risk that these communities are not willing to play. So I think they're right to be pushing back. And what this really represents, I think, people are saying, oh, it's just a flash in the pan or a summer of discontent or whatever else it might be. I actually think it represents ordinary people rising up against the dilution of our sovereignty, against the weakening of our borders. And they're really saying, listen, we've got to get this nation back intact. We've got to stop allowing 500 or 600 men to cross into this country every single day illegally without being vetted. And it's amazing that more politicians aren't saying that. It's amazing that, apart from Robert Jenrick, no politicians have gone to talk to these protesters, to talk to these working people who've been paying into this country for years and years and saying to them, we want to hear your concerns. No government minister has done that because they look down their noses at those people. So this is an incredibly important movement, I think, and it could turn into something even larger, especially if reform rides the wave of this movement and creates a new government on the back of it.
Yeah, remember this, Brendan, the Prime Minister, our Supreme Leader, Keir Starmer, I mean, this is incredible because these protests, these asylum seeker protests, these asylum seeker hotel protests have now been going on for 4 solid weeks, quite constantly, you know, many every week, you know, literally 10, 15 every weekend. And our Prime Minister and indeed any members of his cabinet have yet to say a single word about them. That's an abrogation of governmental duty, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. And the fact that they are ignoring such an important comment by ordinary people, such a lively, noisy, street-based comment by these people on the state of the nation, it just indicates how much contempt they have for those people. They just don't treat them seriously. They look upon them as gammon, you know, the kind of the plebs, the oiks, the little people. Why should we listen to them? Every day that goes past where they don't comment on these protests or deign to go and visit some of the people, every day that happens, they're demonstrating their disgust for those working class communities who dare to ask questions about our border policies. And if you look at the media as well, the difference in the way the media treats Palestine Action protesters and these protesters is extraordinary. The liberal media fawns and gushes over the surgeons and the academics and the poshos who are all saying we love Palestine Action, and they treat with utter contempt these ordinary people with ordinary jobs who are just saying, listen, we don't want strange men overnight in our communities. And it really speaks to the class hatred behind a lot of this. These protesters are not taken seriously because they are predominantly working class, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, here's to the pink ladies, by the way. And that brings me nicely to the last question that I'd like to ask you, please, Brendan. Sally Rooney, who wrote Normal People, which... Don't roll your eyes. No, she wrote Normal People, which was turned into a massive TV hit. Anyway, she's Irish, based in Ireland, has given an interview to the Irish Times, so it's all actually legal because she's not back here. But she has vowed to use her BBC royalties for Normal People to fund Palestine Action. As I said in my monologue at the beginning of the show, of course she does. These people, eh?
Of course. She is just one of the smuggest people in the cultural establishment. And that's saying something, because there's a lot of turbo smug people in the cultural elites. She is, you know, it really... The truth of the matter is that Israelophobia, hatred for Israel, is the luxury belief of our age. You will go to every arts institution, every gallery, every publishing house, every author, every kind of upper middle class leftist. Their fashionable belief is that they hate Israel. Their fashionable item of clothing is the keffiyeh. And when she gives talks about her rubbish novels, in my opinion, and she says, and she always says in those talks how much she hates Israel, because that's what you have to do. And you have this audience of bourgeois young people rattling their jewelry in agreement and cheering her on and clapping for her. She's now posing as some kind of dangerous rebel who's going to break British law and give her BBC money to Palestine Action. She's not a rebel. She's going along with this luxury, lazy belief that says Israel is the most evil nation in the world, which is not true, and in my view, completely bigoted. So I just wish Sally Rooney would put a sock in it for once.
Yeah, like she should have called that book Unacceptably Normal People. Brendan, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Brendan O'Neill there, Chief Political Writer at Spiked Online.